we have another amazing show for you. Okay, so this is, if you're joining us for the first time, it is a virtual meetup, and we bring some stellar guests every month and share their stories, their knowledge. This is also a super cool platform for you to network with other real estate investors. I introduce a few to you. Jamil is the OG of OGs. He started investing in 2002. He is an internationally renowned real estate investor, wholesale expert, and entrepreneur. He is currently co-hosting the A&E series Triple Digit Flip with one of my other favorites, Pace Marby, who I recently had the pleasure of meeting. He also founded the largest wholesale company in the country, KeyGlee, and created a real estate education mentorship program called Astro Flipping. What's cool is a lot of people that come on here always ask me about mentorship programs, and I would highly recommend Jamil's because, he's obviously in it and has been doing it for a long time and has done over 5,000 deals, it just blows my mind. But Jamil, welcome to Real Estate at Work.
Thank you, Lekka. I'm super happy to be here, guys. Thanks for having me here. And that was a wonderful introduction. So as Lekka said, I've been in the business since 2002, self-taught. I wish I wasn't self-taught. I had, if somebody had been able to show me the ropes earlier, I'm sure I would have had so fewer situations and problems that ultimately led to my first, let's call it ruin or bankruptcy. But let's rewind it all back, right?
2000. Let's take us back to 2002. Like, why did you pick real estate as a career?
Well, interestingly enough, right? I was not meant to be an entrepreneur. I was actually attending university to become a doctor. So like most people of Indian heritage, our parents are very involved in our career choices and paths. And for me, my cousins, they were all heading towards the medical field. And like them, my mom and dad were very interested in pressuring me to become a doctor. So I did well in high school and I got into college, the University of Calgary, actually. That's where I grew up, was in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I had a significantly good GPA, 3.95. I scored really well on the medical school entrance exam, which is called the MCAT. And I got all the way to the interview of a medical school at the University of Calgary. And I was young at the time because I was still in my undergraduate degree and early 20s, and I was denied entry. And at that point, I was told, you should reapply. You're just young right now. We'd love to see you back here next year. And it just didn't sit right with me after spending all that time and money to go to university. And after, crushing the medical school entrance exam, crushing my GPA, and really feeling like I deserved that spot and not getting in, I understood a fact of life, that somebody else was controlling my destiny. They were getting to decide what was going to happen to me and for me. And when I came to the realization that after all this hard work, somebody else was able to make the decision, yes or no, as to where I was going to go, I understood that path wasn't meant for me. And I ended up having a very honest conversation with my parents and told them that I wasn't going to pursue this path any longer. I wasn't going to go try again and go to, medical school, that I wanted to try my hand at entrepreneurship. And I broke their hearts, right? So both my parents were extremely disappointed, and they were very much against me embarking on an entrepreneurial journey. But I held fast that I wanted to take my life into my own hands and really do what I could for myself. And so I began initially in a completely unrelated business field than real estate. I was in the media business. So at this time, if you can rewind back to 2002, it's the early days of the internet. And I came into a company that was in the business of convincing businesses that the internet was a real thing and that they should stop advertising in the yellow pages and start advertising online by building a simple 5 or 6 page website. And so this company that I went to initially work for, they were in desperate need of a salesperson because they were having a hard time convincing business owners that the internet was something that they should be investing in. And so this company was on its last breath. It was about to go under. They desperately needed sales. I heard about an opportunity, and so I came in. I'm a very good person on the phones, and so my success in that role was swift. And because it was so good, I ended up leveraging myself to be able to take over that company, and I took over 51% control of the company. Again, I thought this was a power move. I thought this was a great thing because I was selling so many websites and we were bringing in cash. But like anyone who doesn't know their way around a P&L, I quickly learned that these $600 websites that we were selling actually cost us $700 to make. So every sale I made drew us deeper and deeper into the red. Ultimately, that company went out of business. However, like all good things in life, when you're in some type of growth situation, it's typically going to be painful, but you're going to find seeds of opportunity in that situation. And so my business partner at the time, him and his father were real estate developers, and they would take these old ranch style homes in Calgary and they would demolish them and they would rebuild duplexes. And as I was walking by my business partner's office, I overheard a conversation he was having with his father where they were discussing a profit that they were making to the tune of $160,000. And so coming from my background in a neighborhood I grew up in with the economics that I grew up around, $160,000 could literally just be $1 billion to me at that time because I didn't understand what money like that was. But I was really interested in how I could get involved. You know, what could I possibly do to be a part of that conversation? So I asked my business partner and his father, how can I get involved? What can I do to play in this game? Is there anything that I could do to add value? And on the surface, they didn't see an opportunity for me. They said, Jamil, you don't have a real estate license. You don't have any money. You don't have good credit. There's nothing that you can bring to the table for us right now that could help us. A few minutes later, I hear his dad complaining that they need more building lots. And so I interjected to that conversation again. And I asked, well, what does that mean? You need more building lots. How can somebody bring you building lots? And they explained that if I could find a homeowner that lived in one of these older ranch style homes that was in this targeted area of Calgary, Alberta, that they would love to purchase that, and they would purchase it in cash, and we'd be able to close quickly, and they'd be able to give them a very good price for the house. And so if I could find a seller like that, I could have an opportunity to make some money. Well, I lived in a neighborhood where this type of development was going on. And so I'd be walking my dog daily and I'd see these construction projects going. And so the next morning I'm walking my dog and I walk by a house that's for rent. Now, this house had been available for rent for 3 months. I'd actually tried to rent it 3 months earlier, but it was $200 a month above my budget. So that's just kind of painting a picture for you where I was financially at the time. Mm-hmm. $200 actually dictated where I lived. But because I understood that there was a need for this house, I saw the for rent sign. I saw the phone number. The name of the owner was on the sign. I called. I asked the individual if they'd be interested in selling the property instead of renting it, because she wasn't having very much luck renting it. It had been over 3 months that the house had been available. Her answer was absolutely for the right price. I asked, what was that price? And she said $350,000. So I rushed back to the office that day and I asked my business partner how much him and his dad would pay for this house. And his answer was $400,000 all day. So now I have a $50,000 problem, right? How do I purchase this house for $350,000 and sell it to my business partner's dad for $400,000? I didn't want to be a middleman. I didn't want to get paid a finder's fee. I wanted to figure out how I could buy and sell this property to my business partner's dad, but I have no money. And so I start calling uncles and seeing if somebody could help me, but no one in my family had access to that kind of cash. So the next thing I did was what I knew how to do. I got into the phone book and I started calling lawyers in Canada, that's how real estate is conveyed, is through attorneys. So I'm going through the lawyer section of the phone book and I get all the way to the letter S. So the attorney's name was David Steed, Steed. I'll never forget the man because he answered the phone himself. He was so fresh out of law school. Didn't even have a secretary at the time. He answers my call and I explain to him what the situation is. And he tells me that this is a simple thing to resolve. He said, in Canada, we have this instrument called the skip transfer. And that's where you can actually purchase and sell real property without actually needing to come to the table with any money. It's like what we do here in the States. It's called a double close. That's where the funds from your B to C contract will actually fund your A to B contract. And so he explained to me the process. He said, you need 2 purchase contracts. So you need one where you're the buyer at $350,000. And then you need a second one where you're the seller. He said, the key thing that you need to have is on your buyer name on contract 1, it needs to have your name and or assignee. Mm-hmm. And that was it. He said, you get these documents filled out, bring the contracts to me. And in a couple of weeks, once I do all the conveyancing and check the titles and do all of the things that are necessary on my end, I'll have a check for you. And that's what happened. I got the deal done. My first deal, walking my dog, I make a profit of just over $47,000 after the lawyer was paid. And my mind was blown at this time, right? Because I'm coming from a world where I'm losing money every time I have a successful sale. I have just been denied my dream job my father's dream job of me being a doctor. And I finally am touching money that I would have never imagined being able to touch. And so I'm completely sold at this point. I decide I'm going to go full speed at trying to find opportunities for my business partner's dad and their network of builders. And every day I would get the classified section because, back then there wasn't a lot of activity online. So I was finding my leads in the newspaper. I'd buy the newspaper every day. I'd go into the classified sections. I'd look at all the for rents and I'd see anything that would fit the description of the kind of property that my business partner's father wanted. And I would put these houses under contract and flip them to them. And I was doing really well at that. I graduated from single family to apartment buildings because then I also saw that there were all these developers out there who were taking old apartment buildings and they were turning them into condominiums. So I would drive around town and I'd look for all the handwritten apartment for rent signs. And you knew that these people were self-managing their building because they didn't even have a property management company put out the for rent sign in front of the house, in front of the building. It was literally self-managed by some old dude or some old lady. And I would routinely make $100,000 every time I would flip a building. So my life is completely turned upside down at this point, right? I go from no money in the matter of 2002 to 2006, making $12 million. And this is life-changing, right? Life-changing for myself, life-changing for my family. I see you wanting to ask a question, Leica, please.
Yeah, I do. So, what I commend you on is back in 2002 was not like 2022 where there's so much social media around, hey, this is how you wholesale a deal. Like you literally saw an opportunity and you figured the whole process out on your own, right? You were like, oh, this one, and this is what like people write books about, they talk on podcasts about, but you just saw the for sale sign and something clicked in your brain and you said, okay, I can convert that into a sale and a buy for someone else. Like that's pretty amazing that you did that. And of course, then you deserved all the success that came after that. So then I want to hear what happened.
Thank you. I feel really good about that. My brain, there's a part here that I want to, say everybody's naturally gifted at some things, right? My mind sees connections very easily. Like I can connect the dots in my head on, who needs to meet who, how this person and this person can relate, how that person and that person can relate, how this person could add value to this person. So I just naturally do that. I find ways to connect and, other people have natural gifts. For me, connecting the dots was always my gift. And so I'm in this situation now, right, where I'm watching these developers take these old apartment buildings and develop these condominiums I think it was because I was so young at the time, but I think it was because one of the developers was driving a Rolls Royce.
Mm,
And even though I had the money at that time to buy a Rolls Royce, I thought I didn't deserve one because what I did had no title. I wasn't a real estate agent. I wasn't an investor because I wasn't investing in anything. All I was doing was flipping contracts. And so, like most East Indian people, status was still an important thing to me. My
Yep.
family, my father still didn't seem to be proud. Like he still wasn't going around telling my uncles and aunts how proud he was of his son's nameless career. Like how do you even explain what I do? And so I wanted to become a developer for the prestige. I wanted to do something that I could feel proud of, that I was actually making an impact in the community. I was developing, I was doing construction. And so what I do then is I take all the cash that we had amassed from our wholesale deals, and we buy 4 apartment buildings that need complete renovation. And since I hadn't done any major loans or taken out any leverage at that time, I needed a co-signer. So I actually asked my mother and father to come and co-sign these construction loans for me. So everything's looking great at the beginning, right? We pre-sell half of each of these buildings because at that time, that's the way the construction financing was lined up. You would create a sales center, you would have people come in, you would show them what type of building material you were going to use. Sometimes you would construct one unit so that they could take a look at and see what the unit would look like. And then you would pre-sell these units, right? You would take a deposit from this buyer, and then once you had a building 50% sold, the bank would give you the construction financing you need to actually complete the deal. And so I have construction financing lined up. I have 50% of each of these buildings sold. Everything is going great. And then all of a sudden we have the financial crisis in 2007, 2008. And it was quick. It was fast. And what happens actually, it's a little different in Canada than it is in the United States, but the way that leverage and loans are written there, especially in the commercial side, the bank can change and actually have you requalify for a loan, even though it's already been issued, even though the loan was already issued, even though we were in the middle of construction financing. In the mortgage document, it says if financial conditions significantly change, the bank reserves the right to requalify the loan. And so the bank reaches out to us and says, hey, look, the credit markets have all shifted, and all of these pre-qualified buyers that we based our construction financing to you on all need to be requalified now because our lending practices have changed. And because these loans haven't been issued yet, it's actually our right to requalify these guys. So you need to bring them all back to the table so we can requalify them. Well, obviously, when we brought them all in to get requalified, none of them requalified because of the new standards that the bank had raised to. Right. And so now our construction loans all got called in. And we had no way out of this situation. There was no new leverage available. There was no other banks wanting to give us loans, even though we hadn't defaulted on a payment, even though there was nothing we had done to cause this situation. The bank literally put us in a spot where we lost it all. So not only did I lose all the money in down payment, wow. not only did I lose all the money in construction that we had done to that point, but because I had my family co-sign on the loans, they came and took my home and they took my parents' home. So at the end of all of this, we've got me, my mom, my dad, my sister, my 150-pound dog, my niece, my cat, whoa, all had to move into a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house.
That's crazy.
So millions of dollars to devastate.
So then what happened? Like, how did you dig yourself out of that? Great
question. So, Leka, at the time, I wanted nothing to do with real estate ever again. Right. I was.
Don't blame you.
I felt like what the banks had done was, in my opinion, unfair. And I didn't know how it was legal. I didn't know how you could put somebody into a situation, take their down payment, take their money, have them invest in these units to be constructed, and then change the terms on them mid game. how do you change the rules of a game in the middle of the game? I just didn't understand how that worked. And so for me, I just felt like the banks were all crooked. I felt like, the government was in on it. I truly felt like it was this massive conspiracy to defraud investors out of their money so that financial institutions could win. So they did. They ultimately beat me out of all of that equity. They beat me out of all that money. The banks took those buildings and then they went and resold them and made themselves whole. Meanwhile, I was holding the bag of all that default, all of those loans that we defaulted on. At the end of the day, there was nothing I could do. I was millions of dollars in debt. And since I had nothing to stand on, I didn't want to go and be a doctor again. Yeah. I actually had written a script. I've always been a creative person. And even though I was doing well in real estate, I had made some friends in the entertainment business in Los Angeles, and I was trying my hand at writing comedy scripts. And so I'd actually written a 30-minute comedic television show that got optioned for $50,000. And
no way.
So here I am at the end of this terrible situation, and I have this lifeline in front of me. I might be able to have a career in comedy. So I tell my parents and my family, I said, look, we have nothing left here in Canada. Why don't we go to LA? I've got this 50,000. We can use that to live, and I'll go do open mics and I'll try my hardest to become an entertainer. And because we had nothing else to fall back on, they said, let's go. And so that's what we did. We left Canada. We went to the United States. I was actually born in the US. So for me, it was, I on the immigration side, it was no problem. I was a dual US Canadian citizen, and then I could actually sponsor my family to come to the States as well. So it actually worked out. But I'm there in LA now trying to be a comedian, and that didn't work. So I went and did all the open mics, and the script that got optioned never got made. So that never became a show. The money was really running out quickly, but I started getting some traction. I started producing and writing short videos that were finding their way onto Funny or Die, and they were getting traction and tremendous views and support. So then I started making money, and I started looking at ways that I could supplement my life so that I could afford living in Los Angeles, because it's such an expensive place to live.
Right.
And so now we're talking 2010. And what I'm seeing in the market at 2010 was over in Phoenix, Arizona, which isn't very far from LA, you could buy a condominium that had one time sold for 400 grand, now for $25,000. And you could actually rent that condo for $850 a month. So I'm sitting here thinking, wow, I can make money here in LA. I can take that money and I can go buy a condo in Phoenix, and I can rent that for $850. And I would pay the condo fee and the taxes and all that, and I'd probably cash flow around $600 a unit. If I could amass a few of these units, I could arbitrage my rent and actually cover my lifestyle in Los Angeles. And so that's what I start doing. I start producing more shorts. Those shorts pay me. I buy a condo. I start arbitraging rent, and it's starting to make sense on paper, except my property manager was really not doing right by me. And that's another story. But what ends up happening is, at that time, all of the units I was buying were short sales. And the way the short sale game worked was you never knew what was going to get approved by the bank and what wasn't going to get approved. So you were writing way more offers than you could actually purchase, because like 1 out of every 10 offers was actually getting approved at the time. Maybe a little bit more than that, maybe like 3 out of every 10, but it was a low average. And so what ends up happening is, because I've written so many contracts, I couldn't buy everything that could get approved, because you didn't know what was actually going to be approved. So this was the strategy. So what ends up happening is I get 2 houses that end up getting bank approval that I can't close on now because I don't have the funds available. I'd already bought what I had available, and now there's these 2 contracts on these 2 great houses at amazing prices, but nothing I can do with them. So I return back to what I know how to do, which is sell a contract. I go to Craigslist and I write an ad. And I say that I've got these 2 contracts for sale. And this is right before the bank started instituting the deed restrictions that didn't allow you to sell your position in a short sale. So it was in this
Right.
like really fun, interesting place right before a lot of the rules tightened up on short sales. And I was actually able to flip those 2 short sale contracts for an $18,000 profit in minutes on Craigslist. So I'm sitting here in LA looking at the fact that I just made $18,000 writing an ad, writing 2 contracts and an ad on Craigslist. And I think, what am I doing in this town? Why am I still here? Nobody's laughing at my jokes. I'm not getting any like great roles. I'm auditioning for so many things, and everybody just, the only thing I'm ever auditioning for is to play an Indian doctor, and I don't want to be a doctor. Right? It's the only role that I ever get an audition for is, hey, we got a role for you. It's a doctor. Hey, we got a role for you. It's a doctor. Guess what? Another role for you. It's a doctor. So this is all that I'm getting in Hollywood. So I make a decision. I make a decision that I have to give up my dream. I got to give up my dream of being an entertainer and being on TV. And I'm going to do what's right for the family. And I'm going to go do what I'm naturally gifted to do, which is buying and selling real estate. And on my birthday, it was actually 12/12/12. My birthday is December 12th. On December 12th, 2012, I got in a U-Haul and I drove from LA to Phoenix, bawling my eyes out. I was so sad because I felt like I was leaving my dreams behind, that I was just, I felt like I was selling out for money at the time. I'm like, I'm giving up everything that I want to try to accomplish so that I can support my family, but it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the best decision I ever made.
That is such a good story, because I have always believed that it's not important to make money. It's more important to learn to make money. It's, if you know how to make money, it doesn't matter if you're in a downturn, upturn, it doesn't matter. You're still going to be okay. And
Absolutely.
so you just, like, that story is amazing, and very inspiring.
Thank you.
We're gonna get to today and your current situation and how you are in fact an entertainer, but you also get to buy and sell real estate. But we're going to take a short break from Jamil, and we're going to jump to me introducing you to 2 other guests, and then we'll come back to Jamil. So hold that thought, Jamil. We're going to talk about the current state of the market, and how you've now done over 5,000 deals. All right. So first, I want to introduce you to Joe Finneran. Joe, are you here? No. Ask you to start video. Okay, just holler when you get here. Oh, he's here. Okay, perfect. And unmute. All right. So, okay. Hi, Joe.
Hey, what's up? I don't have a professional background like you guys. I'm just in my kitchen. I got to step my game up with that. But
that's right.
That's okay.
Right. Okay, so here's why Joe is so fascinating, and I wanted him to come talk to all of you. Joe is 36 years old. He owns a huge rental portfolio, and he is a high altitude mountain climber, and he travels the world even more than me. But what is really cool about Joe is that he owns his portfolio free and clear. Free and clear.
Don't say that too loud. A personal injury attorney might be listening somewhere in like Midwest or New York.
And he did it, he's about an hour away from New York. So it's not like, it's an easy market to play in. But Joe, tell us a little bit about your story. Like, how did you come to own your portfolio free and clear?
I started in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
About ago, and I was, I think, 25 then, and the market was really low. When Jamal was talking like 2010, 2012, everything was really low. I bought my first house. I fixed it up. I lived in it for a while. I sold it. I mean, you can get properties for like $50,000 back then. And I did that a few times. And nobody else was really in real estate that much. And I just kept going with it. I would flip and buy a rental and then flip, and it just became more and more. I just did that for 10 years, pretty much. I didn't want to get a mortgage and go to the bank because I want to live off my rentals. I didn't want to cash flow, $600 a month. I want to cash flow like, $2,000 a month. I'd rather have it now.
Yeah.
To live off. So I didn't do the whole Burr method or anything like that.
Yeah.
Would it work out better? Maybe, but when you do that, you have to keep on working. You're borrowing against it. The clock's ticking on the interest. You have to reinvest that somewhere. You're kind of forcing yourself to work. So I did a little bit differently. Would I have a lot more units now? Yeah, but I'd probably have a lot more work also.
I love that, okay? Because we all we're like, how do we leverage this? How do we bring on more partners? How do we do bigger deals? How do we syndicate properties? How do I scale from 1 to 10? And then I met Joe and I was like, oh my God, I've been literally doing this all wrong all my life because he's absolutely right. The more you take on, the more work it is. And honestly, we all say that we want to play the long game, patience is golden, but what about right now? What about now when you're young and you can actually enjoy life and doing it his way? Like, he cash flows like a king, and like every month he makes like an insane amount of passive income while his properties are appreciating. So like tomorrow, if he wanted to go, scale and buy 10 deals, all he needs to do is sell one of his properties. Just so we understand, you bought these properties for like 50 to 100K. What are they priced at today, 10 years later?
Some of them I sold. The first few years I was just selling. I didn't know about investing. I just, it sounds cheap, looks cheap. I think I can make money. I didn't know about cap rates or percentages or I was new the first few years. And then I met these two guys. They bought 4 or 5 properties off of me, and they were from New York City, and they invested heavy up here, and they kind of taught me, and I'd had a lot of dinners and lunches with them, and they taught me, about more investing, not just fixing it up and selling it, more of the long game. And the one guy, Elon was his name, he predicted the future on everything. He said that 10 years ago, no, about 7, 8 years ago, he said that, there's not enough housing being built. It's going to come, homes are underbuilt. And now it is. They've been underbuilding for like 10 or 15 years, homes, and the population around America has outscaled the amount of homes that were built. And right. I don't know about your area, but in my area, I put an apartment for rent and I get like 100 phone calls or 100 emails. Like, I need this, I need this, I need this. It's so
it's incredible. I am really so proud of you, and I just wanted to introduce you to this community. If you can put your email in the chat, maybe your Instagram handle, people can follow you, because he's in New York. Esther and Joe, I think you guys met. I introduced you guys.
Hudson Valley. I'm like a little over an hour from New York City. And during COVID, a lot of people flocked over here. They wanted to get out of, the city with the COVID and everything going on. So.
She's in Hudson Valley too. Oh my God, I had no idea.
I'm in Goshen area. I don't know if she knows where that is.
Of course, I know where that is. I'm in Pomona.
Oh.
Yeah, you're in Rockland.
That's too funny.
Nice.
Awesome.
I'm in Rockland. We're neighbors.
Yeah.
Neighbors. I'm coming to visit both of you. Hey, Joe, tell us what you do now. Like, tell us about your mountain climbing a little bit.
I travel around the world, and I like to go on these treks and kind of disconnect. And I was in Africa a month or 2 ago, mountain climbing there. And I just like the thrill of it. I do really high mountains, like 20,000 feet up, and I love it. And my job lets me do it. And I still self-manage the tenants, but I just coach them really well. I tell them, this is my house, but it's your home. So don't call me for door handles, and and toilet handles and the window lock is broken. Like, no, if you have a serious problem, don't call me. Only call me if it's critical. Like,
I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna blow it up and I'm gonna give it to my property manager.
like a tenant, I get it. I am the landlord. They are the tenant, but they are also an adult. This isn't like a 1-800 hotline. Like, oh, the door handle's loose or this. Like, look, you're an adult also. If the heat's out, no problem. Call me. Or if a pipe bursting, water everywhere, no problem. Call me. But look, I can't be getting called for every little thing. And most people, they get it. I give them that rundown before I give them the place. So they know I'm a no-nonsense guy. You know, like if they were living in downtown Manhattan and they're paying, you know, $7,000 a month for a 2-bedroom. Yeah, I can give you that, you know, quality of, we'll change the door handles for
Right.
you. That's not the case.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
okay, listen, thank you for being here. We're gonna jump to Antoinette, but
Okay.
leave your Insta handle in the chat.
I'll leave it there. All right, guys. Take care.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Leica, for having me. Bye.
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 Okay, so our next guest is Antoinette Munroe, and she is a force to be reckoned with. It was a really funny story how we even met. She came to the best ever conference thinking it was the Bigger Pockets conference. And she was heading to a Bigger Pockets meetup at the best ever conference that I was also going to. And so she was kind enough to let me share her Uber. And then we started talking. And I was like, wait, what do you do? Like, this is amazing. So she quit her W-2 and went into buying and managing her short-term rentals, and now has a little portfolio that is really cash flowing, and it's incredible how she built that portfolio. So Antoinette, welcome, and tell us a little bit about you and tell us what you've done and how you managed to do that.
Hi, thank you for having me. I keep making perpetual mistakes and stumbling into good things. So the same with real estate. It wasn't an intentional choice. I bought a house back in 2015, decided to do a grand renovation on it without having the cash for that. And then after racking up all that debt, having to figure out how to get rid of it. So I decided to get roommates. But rather than doing roommates, I tested Airbnb. And that was like lightning fuel. Within the first month of operating Airbnb, just using 2 bedrooms out of my home, I had hit 5. I had no debt, and Airbnb was covering all of my bills. But even still, I wasn't thinking about being a real estate investor. I was just glad that, you know, I was paying this debt off and I didn't have bills to pay. But in 2019, I decided that I wanted to be a real estate investor and I would do a deal and see what happened. And that was only because my childhood neighbor across the street from my mom wanted to move and sell her house. I had understood wholesaling. So I was like, I know what this is. I know how to do this process. So I went through that deal with her, being able to get it under contract. Of course, the personal relationship won out from the other wholesalers, but I was able to rehab that house, rent it out, and refi all of my cash back out in 45 days. So after that, then I was like, okay, I'm a real estate investor. I'm going to do this full time. But I still went at it really, really slowly. So I bought a house a year for the next 3 years, put them all on Airbnb. All of them operate as either 2 to 3 units. So with 4 properties and totaling 10 units, that's enough Airbnb income for me to quit my job and not have to worry about how I'm going to make ends meet anymore. So that's the long short of it.
I love it. Okay, and then how were you able to furnish these Airbnbs?
I'm very good at Facebook Marketplace, but to start, I was living in the first home, so it was furnished for me. When I moved out of that one, I would just leave my furniture. So the first 2 units, I'd live there first, furnished it for myself, and then I would just leave furniture behind. But what I found was that it looked like it lived in versus somebody ordered a bunch of stuff from Amazon and put it together. So I furnished all of the units from OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace, next door, so it has a true homey feel. I'm getting actual home furniture, so no boxed items or things put together from Amazon.
I love that. Okay, so what is your future goals?
So the
I
future
know they're
goals,
big.
I'm currently in transitioning one or two of the Airbnb units to a state licensed group home for persons with developmental disabilities. Because I don't want a super large portfolio, I'm always looking for like the next highest cash flow model for the property. And I found that going group home would do that. So think assisted living facility, but rather than for senior people, it's for people with disabilities, and they could be any age. So now I'm taking the earnings that I'm making per month on the house, and that becomes the earnings I can make per bed in the house, and I can have up to 5 beds. So that's one piece of it. And then I'll take all of the earnings from the group home model and funnel that into a multifamily opportunity. And I think one solid multifamily, that would be enough to kind of have diversity in my portfolio, because my ultimate goal is to make sure that I'm not working and living a life of leisure. So I don't want to get too big.
I love that. Well, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to connect with you. So go ahead, put your info in the chat. If any of you have a podcast or a meetup that you want Antoinette to speak at, I think she would be fantastic. So go ahead and connect with her on Instagram.
Okay. Thank you, Lika, for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Time to bring Jamil back.
Hi. Wow.
Hi.
I love Joe and I love Antoinette. What incredible people and stories. Super honored to be on with these two fine human beings today.
So sweet. You're so sweet. And yeah, they are amazing. All of you are. Okay. So coming back to this segment, what I want to know from you is, what is your sentiment today? Like, what are you feeling right now with everything that is going on around us?
It's a great question, Lika. So, I'm a wholesaler, and because I'm a wholesaler, I also fix and flip. Don't get me wrong. But I primarily wholesale. And the beauty of wholesale is that you're in and out of property. You're not taking substantial risk because you can walk away, and truly you can time the market in real time. Like, I know what a property will trade for right now today. And because of that, I'm able to make money on an up market, and I'm able to make money on a down market. So we're still doing very well in our wholesale operation. In fact, I just completed a deal yesterday where our fee was $36,500, and the seller was in tears. They were so happy that we moved forward with the deal. They listen to this. They tried other wholesalers. They tried iBuyers. They had to sell to a cash buyer because of their certain situation. And the price that I gave them was way more money than they had gotten from anybody else. So the fact that I was able to complete that deal, make $36,500 on top of that, and have the seller in tears because of how grateful they were, I feel really good about what's happening, at least in our business model today. I'm certain that there's some people out there feeling pain, and I feel terrible for the people that are in financial difficulties right now because of the current market conditions. But I think that this is going to present us some incredible buying opportunities. I think that if you are patient, if you understand how to underwrite correctly, and when I mean underwrite, I mean learn how to value property the way an appraiser would. If you can get that skill, you can absolutely jumpstart, flourish in today's market. And so my sentiment is actually very high. I feel that we have a great opportunity in front of us. We could all create generational wealth if we applied correct technique and move forward with resolve.
I love that. And honestly, my next question was going to be, how do you profit in a down market?
Well, for me, the profits are just making sure that I'm buying correctly, right? So when you're wholesaling, my typical buyer is a fix and flipper, right? I'm always going after properties with potential. I define wholesaling as buying and selling potential. That's it. You can't wholesale a full retail house. When people say, oh, wholesalers are taking equity from grandma, or wholesalers are giving you pennies on the dollar of what your house is actually worth. Well, that's a complete, in my opinion, complete misunderstanding of what's actually happening. You see, the fact is that these houses, a lot of them can't even be financed because of the condition that they're in right now. So a cash offer is the only offer that's going to work. And because of that, whichever investors that out there that's going to deploy that capital, take the risk to buy that house, not only is taking a risk to buy the house that's in complete disrepair, but they're taking a risk on the market time. They're taking and they have to spend all of that money to force appreciation in the house. So they're entitled to make a profit. So for me, how do I make a profit in a market like now? Well, first and foremost, I make sure that I am up to date on my fundamentals. So I have to know exactly where my market is trading today. And how I do that is I just pay attention. I pay attention to the pendings. I pay attention to what contracts have canceled. I'm paying attention to days on market. I'm paying attention to where there's still a heavy activity of buyers or retail buyers pulling the trigger and completing transactions. And if I can focus in areas like that, then I know that my fix and flip clients will be more inclined to want to take those properties on. The second thing is, I also understand that this inventory flood that we've had recently is actually turning the corner. If you guys are paying attention to national headlines right now, inventory is actually starting to steadily decrease. What ended up happening was, when the interest rates doubled, essentially, all of the investors, all of the people who had that FOMO of wanting to have sold at the peak of the market, they flooded the market with their listings in a very short period of time. But that's it. There's not this big train of inventory waiting to come back onto the market and continue to grow those inventory numbers. So once that inventory gets absorbed, then where are we going to go? We just heard Joe speak about the lack of inventory that we're seeing in the market right now. I read a stat the other day that said in 2008, there was one house for every 80 people in Phoenix, Arizona. Today, there's one house for every 360 people in Phoenix, Arizona.
Whoa.
There is not enough housing out there. And when you understand the reality of that, it makes me realize that this temporary, and I'm going to really underline the word temporary, slowdown that we're seeing in activity will not last. In fact, interest rates being at 5-6% historically are pretty normal. And so it's just going to take a certain amount of time for the buying public to reset the way that they're thinking about where interest rates are. And I don't think that this slowdown is going to last a tremendously long period of time.
You know, when I was with AJ Osborne a couple of weeks ago, we were looking at just historically how people have owned their homes, and 92% own their homes for under 3% interest. And those people are obviously not going to list their house unless they have to move or buy something else. They're not going to bring that house back on the market because they're never going to get that interest rate. So all of that inventory is basically shot. And so that is going to cause that void of inventory. For a fix and flipper like me that buys wholesale deals from you.
Right.
Right. So I agree with that. I honestly think that, you know, it is also a time where people have to adjust to these, like just have themselves adjust to this higher interest rate because it's not coming down. Like this is going to be the lowest interest rate that is available in the market for a long time.
I agree with you. I think we're once inflation gets under control and the Fed stops the rate hikes, we're going to get to a point where we'll hover around 5.5%. And that will end up becoming the new norm. That'll become where people will start getting excited once we hit 5% and we start seeing things get on sale. But in all honesty, my gut tells me that for the next decade, especially because we've got And we still, even now with the downturn, 19% of all housing inventory is being absorbed by an investor buyer. Think of that. Back in the day in 2008, that buyer didn't exist.
Didn't exist.
Didn't exist. And now that buyer is buying 20% of the inventory out there. That's a huge number, guys. Just think of that. 19% of all housing inventory is bought by investor buyers. So that only leaves 80% of the inventory left. And that 80% is significantly depressed.
Okay, Keith, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Hey there. Is part of that 19% like the large mega corporations coming into the market as well? Is that what?
Absolutely. It's the institutional private equity firms. But it's funny because Dave Meyer and I had an opportunity to interview a guest recently on the Market podcast that we do for Bigger Pockets. And I asked the question, how much of the 19% is actually private equity, large institutional investors? And it's only 2% of the 19%.
Oh.
So 17% of that housing inventory is actually owned by mom and pop landlords, which I think insulates us from, the thing about these private equity firms is that when they turn on and turn off, they can create massive problems, right? Because if they all of a sudden stop buying, if they all just say, hey, stop buying, right? Then you're saying, well, 20% of the inventory is not going to be bought anymore, but that's not how it's working. They're only 2% of the 19%. So even if they flood the market with all of their inventory, it's not going to create a massive situation.
Exactly right. So I want to talk about how you have found yourself a spot to actually entertain. And I just absolutely love your social media content. And you are on a hit TV show, Triple Digit Flip. So let's talk about your social media and your TV appearances and
Sure.
How did all that come about?
Well, interesting. In the past, I know it doesn't sound like, I was telling you I wanted to be a comedian, but I'm really an introvert. I'm an extroverted introvert. I love to be on when I'm on, but otherwise I'm super to myself.
Right.
I like being in the house. I'm a strange duck, right? Like I do enjoy my privacy. And so I never really had a social media presence. In fact, my profile picture up until 2020 was an owl. And I had no posts. I had no, I wasn't sharing with anybody anything. But I made friends with this beautiful man named Pace Morby, who is an investor here in Phoenix, Arizona, who was in his own little situation.
Wait, you have 142,000 followers.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes, that happened in a very short amount of time.
That's
So
crazy.
How it went down was Pace and I meet, and he's telling me, Jamil, you gotta, you can't be an owl on social media. You have to, be a human being, let people see you. And because him and I were hanging out with each other so much, he would tag me in stories and in posts. So then I finally decided, okay, I'm gonna put my face there. I'm gonna put my name there, and I'm just gonna be real. I'm just gonna be who I am. And I wasn't gaining any traction. I wasn't really trying to. I didn't care if I had followers or likes or anything like that. It wasn't important to me. But the pandemic happens. 2020 comes, and I'm bored. I'm at home. I have nothing to do. And so I would be out every day taking a walk around my neighborhood. And I decided one day I was just going to turn my camera on and start talking, just sharing with my 400 followers at the time, my opinion on what I thought was happening in real estate, what I thought was happening in real estate in relation to the pandemic, and what I thought investors or buyers or sellers or wholesalers should be looking forward to or thinking about the current state of affairs. And it just so happened that people were interested in what I had to say, because I was at the time and still am running the nation's largest wholesale operation, KeyGlee. And so my opinion mattered to folks, especially wholesalers that were wondering, am I going to be out of a career? Do I need to go get a real estate license, or should I go get a W-2 job again? How long is this all going to last? They were worried. And so people were tuning in and listening to what I had to say on my Instagram page. And so even though I'd have only a few hundred followers, my videos were getting 5, 7, 10,000 views. And so I was like, okay, cool. I guess what I'm saying is interesting to people. So I continued posting, and lo and behold, I start having fun with it because my comedian side starts coming out, and I start making little skits and having fun. And then that stuff started like going bananas. I all of a sudden I'd have 20,000 views and then 100,000 views. And I was like, this is crazy. And so my social media starts growing, and Pace and I start collaborating more and more and more. And how the television show happened was actually Pace and I, everybody thinks we're business partners. We're not. We're actually competitors. We compete at everything. We compete on the deals we buy. We compete on our fix and flips. We compete for coaching clients. We compete all the time.
I swear I thought you guys were business partners.
Yes, everybody does, because we're so close, right? But what we do is we collaborate as competitors. So we don't have this concept of mine and yours. And anytime there's an opportunity for me to share with Pace, I share with Pace. Anytime he has an opportunity to share with me, he shares with me. That's just what we do as brothers and friends. And so it just so happened that we were both fighting on a deal that we didn't know that we were bidding each other on. And so Pace would always ask my opinion of value, because I've been known as a very good evaluator, underwriter in the market. I have a YouTube show called Straight Outta Compin'. I teach people how to comp. Like I'm really obsessed.
Oh my God, that is the best. That is the best name.
I love it. It is fun. It's like it's an obsession for me. Understanding how to appraise, understanding how to find value is like, it's just something I nerd out on. So Pace would always text me, hey, how much do you think this house's ARV is? Or what do you think I should buy this house for? And we are both bidding on this house. And he sends me a text message and he says, hey, some knucklehead is bidding me up on this house. And I thought I was going to get it for 160. And now the wholesaler wants 180 for it. What do you think? Should I buy it? And I'm like, yo, I'm the knucklehead. So he says, okay, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, why don't I do this? How about I just rescind my offer? You go buy it for what it was. And then he suggests, why don't we just share it and do the deal together? I'm like, perfect. So I rescind my offer. Pace ends up buying the property. And then he said, why don't you meet me at the house and we'll do a YouTube video? So at this time, our social medias are starting to pick up a little bit. So we just make a post. Hey, we're going to be at this house at this time, walking through a potential rehab that we're about to start. And if you want to join us, come on through. We'll be there in an hour. So 50 people show up. We're like, cool, right? There's like 50 folks out here to meet us, walk this house. And we've got a videographer there filming us walking through. It's kind of fun. We're laughing and joking. Actually, the funny thing about it, it was a police officer who had passed away. But the police officer was a hoarder. You wouldn't ever think like, hey, a cop's going to be a hoarder. Anyways, it was the strangest house we had ever walked before. Rest in peace to the officer. But anyhow, the video was super fun. We had a great time, and it got posted on Pace's YouTube. And all of a sudden, one day, this producer is out in the world looking to find new talent for A&E as they're expanding their show offerings into the home renovation space. And they come across Pace's YouTube channel, and they come across that video. And so a producer starts messaging me online. So she starts sending me DMs on Instagram, sending me DMs on Facebook. I think it's a scam, so I ignore her. And so she starts reaching out to Pace, and she's like, hey, I've been trying to reach out to Jamil, but he's ignoring me. I would really love to talk to the two of you guys about potentially coming on a television show. And so Pace calls me and he says, hey, what do you think of this? And I tell him, look, man, all of they're all scams. All these people are scammers. I'm telling you, I've been in Hollywood. I know how hard it is to get a TV show. Producers just don't call you like this. They're going to want us to pay them $50,000 to shoot a pilot and this and that. This is a scam, bro. Like, don't even bother. I don't got time. You don't got time. And he says, well, she says she works for A&E. I'm like, that's BS. Because it's usually a production company that reaches out to you. It's not going to be the network reaching out to you. So I can already tell you this is a lie. And he said, well, look, why don't we just give her 5 minutes, right? So I'm like, okay, if you want 5 minutes, I can absolutely give 5 minutes. So he agrees to do a Zoom. I hop on a Zoom and I'm looking at the name on the Zoom and I Google it. And lo and behold, it's the executive vice president of reality television at A&E. And I was just thinking, wow, I'm actually on a Zoom call right now with a network VP. And I had literally spent years in Hollywood trying to even, be this person's assistant or like for me, even having that opportunity was just out of my, like way out of my league, right? I would have never thought that was going to happen. So I'm sitting on this Zoom and we are vibing with this executive. We're making her laugh. She's having fun. We're having fun. And she says, look, I just adore you guys. I think you'd be so wonderful on television. Normally how this process works is we'll send out a crew, we'll shoot a sizzle reel. Once we do a sizzle reel, then, we'll take it to the others in the networks who makes the decision. She's like, I'm one of the main decision makers, but there's 2 others with me that also decide what gets greenlit. If they greenlight a pilot, then we come back out and we shoot a pilot. And then if everybody loves the pilot, once we test it in our focus groups and all the other things, then we'll do a 6-episode order. And then once that 6 episodes have been shot, we'll air them. And then if people like it, then we'll finish off the rest of the season and order another 4 episodes. And so it's like, we're like, bro, this is never going to happen, right? Look at all the things that are if. And so we said, cool, no problem. So, we'll hear from you next week. So we get this email 2 days later that says, urgent, we need to talk. So I'm like, oh, this is where they're going to tell us that this is not going to happen, right?
Right.
So we hop on the Zoom and she says, this is very out of the ordinary. This isn't how business is done in Hollywood. So I'm letting you guys know that this is not how things go. But we showed our Zoom to the head of A&E and she's fallen in love with you guys. And so we're skipping the sizzle reel. We're skipping the pilot. We're going right to a full season order and we're offering you a contract for 6 seasons.
6 seasons?
Yeah.
Insane.
That's it.
That is amazing. Because, wait, that is amazing. Congratulations.
I know. It's like, what, look at God, right?
It's amazing. Okay. So, and how often does this air?
We air every Saturday. So season 1 is already aired. If you weren't able to catch it, you can order it on Amazon. It's called Triple Digit Flip. Season 1 is already there. Season 2 starts airing. It was supposed to start airing in October, but it looks like they want to push to sometime in the new year. We're just finishing filming season 2. We're on the last episode right now. So that should probably air in January sometime. And we start filming season 3 probably 2 months after we wrap season 2.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. I can tell you it is such a hard process. So Bravo, this is a true story. Bravo was in Seattle and they made everybody around here that was an investor submit to the show because they were going to do a fix and flip show. It was like one of a kind. It was super cool. It was like a reality show for flippers. And so we all like put our applications in and lo and behold, they picked 6 of us out of 3,000 people, and I was one of them. And they made me create a sizzle reel. They made me send them all kinds of photos, like from birth to now, like wedding photos, kid photos, like good photos, bad photos. They wanted it all. They basically wanted me to sign my life away, and I was willing to do that. But their thing was they were picking between Seattle, San Diego, and New Orleans, and ended up going with New Orleans because they already had a TV show there. And they were like, it's just going to be easy to tack on another show because our crews are already there. And so they nixed San Diego and Seattle. But
Dang it.
I know, I was like, okay, whatever, like it wasn't meant to be. So it's really hard to get on a show. So congratulations. Like, I am so impressed.
Thank
with
you. It's neat because I get to be on the show with my best friend who I absolutely enjoy. You know, it's funny, Pace and I are so close that when we travel, because we travel around the country together and we do pop-up events and we speak on stages. And it's funny when we go to an event and the person who puts on an event will typically cover our travel. And these days we're getting speaking fees, which is fun. That's a whole new thing for me, right? We used to beg to be on stages. Now we're being paid to be on stages, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But they take care of your travel, they take care of your hotel. And even though we can, stay in 5-star rooms with our own rooms, Pace and I always share rooms. Like, even to this day, we share a room together, right? So it's like, that's how close we are. And so we get to do this together. But then also my sister is our project manager and she's our other co-star. So, and Laura, Pace's wife, is the 4th co-star. So it's Pace.
I saw that.
It's Pace, his wife, my sister, and I all together. We all are so close. And what better day could I have but to get to hang out with my family and best friends and laugh our butts off all day long.
That is amazing. It makes me so happy. And you know what? It's so well-deserved because you were literally kicked in the shin. You figured out a way to come back and you did it right by yourself. You did it right by your family. And now, Rob just left us, but said that you literally changed his life, and that's what's cool about this. That's why we do this, is if someone can learn from our mistakes, then, why not show them an easy way out?
Absolutely.
So that they can do better for themselves and their families.
Absolutely.
All right. So we are at the end of our interview, but I want to ask you to leave us with one amazing piece of advice.
So
pressure.
It's not really, because there's a thing I've really come to an understanding of, and it's just the innate worth and power that each one of us has. Every person on this Zoom, every person in your life, whether they're people you love or people you dislike, every one of us is immensely powerful. And when I say immensely powerful, I mean like divinely powerful. And we have been given this lie, told this lie that we are less than, that we need these trinkets and accoutrements to hang on our life as objects to measure ourselves with, to give ourselves worth and status. When in fact, you are the most worthy creation that walks the planet. You have the capacity to create anything and everything you want in your life. And I've absolutely come to the conclusion that if you just allow yourself the ability to move forward in a direction towards realizing your dreams, that you will get there. You look at Maslow's pyramid, something they teach us in elementary school. The top of the pyramid is called self-actualization. And a lot of us don't even understand what that is. We don't even know what it means. But to fully realize who you are as a human is the goal. And so the piece of advice that I would give anybody listening to me today is that there's nothing special about me. There's the same thing in me as there is in you. And that's the ability to make it happen. So if you have a desire, if you have a goal, the recipe that I have for success is put it in your head. Sorry, I get emotional when I talk about it because I know it's real. I know it's real, but if you put it in your head, you put it in your heart, and you take one step, just one, everything you want will unfold.
Oh my God, you're gonna make me cry. That was amazing, Jamil.
It's real.
You are really my brother from another mother.
Thank you.
That was amazing. That is, I think, the best freaking advice we have gotten on this meetup ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Leka. I appreciate being here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys. Thank you for listening to me, giving me just the opportunity to share and take space with you today. It's been an honor.
Well, I know how busy your week has been. I've been speaking with your assistant, and she literally said that you've been in back-to-back meetings. So I really appreciate you coming here, taking the time to talk to us, and sharing such amazing, deep wisdom. Thank you, Jamil, for being here so much.
Thank you, Leka. Love you, sister.
Love you, love you. And I can't wait to see you in person soon.
Yay.
Thank you, Jamil. You were so spectacular.
Thank you, guys.
I pick one guest to take us out every single meetup. And this time, Kaylee, you're going to take us out.
Leka, what does that even mean? I've been on your meetups, but I've never been put on the spot like that before. All right. Well, Leka and everyone, thank you for sharing your abundance and your stories and your opportunities and how to win and succeed in both real estate and life. With that, we'll see you next time.